Chapter 5, The One Who Waits. Eliza couldn't bring herself to sleep that night. She kept staring into the mirror in her closet. It was tall and thin, old-fashioned, with a beveled edge. Her parents must have left it when they moved her dresser. She didn't remember it being there before. Now, it stared back at her like an open eye. In it, her reflection stood normally, most of the time. But every now and then, when she looked away, then looked back, her reflection was off. Just slightly. Once, her eyes were closed. Another time, her lips didn't move when she mouthed, "Stop." She covered the mirror with an old blanket. It didn't help. That night, she dreamed of hands, gray hands, reaching up from the trapdoor, threading her mouth shut with black string. The next morning, Eliza skipped breakfast. Her parents were too distracted to notice. "Try to get some air," her mom said. "You've been pale lately." Outside, the wind scraped through the trees like a blade. Eliza walked through the backyard to the far tree line. She turned to look at the house. From this distance, it looked still, innocent. But she could see her window. And behind it, just for a moment, a face. Not hers. Back inside, she spent the day studying everything about the trapdoor. She measured its width, took pictures of the hinges, drew the ladder, mapped the tunnel, the hallway, Clara's room. She wrote it all down in a red spiral notebook she kept in her backpack. One entry stood out. "There's something else down there. Not Clara. Something old. Watching. Waiting." That night, she left her door cracked open. She told herself it was so she could hear her parents. But really, she didn't want to feel trapped. The whisper came again. This time, not from below. From the closet. "Eliza." She sat up in bed, frozen. The mirror's blanket had slipped off. She could see her reflection again. Only it wasn't her. The reflection smiled. Lips stitched loosely, the thread moving with every twitch. Its eyes were sunken and gray. Its hands reached up slowly, and pointed. To the floor. To the trapdoor. She went back down the ladder before dawn. She couldn't stop herself. The stone chamber welcomed her. The flickering bulb buzzed louder now, casting shadows that didn't match her shape. The mirror stood silent. Opaque. Like it was waiting. She touched it again. It rippled. She stepped through. The hallway was different this time. Narrower. The walls closer, almost breathing. The portraits had changed, eyes gouged out, mouth sewn shut. A door at the end of the hall creaked open without her touching it. Clara's room. Only Clara wasn't alone anymore. She stood in the corner, trembling. Across from her stood a figure. Tall. Wrong. Featureless. Its head almost touched the ceiling. Eliza couldn't move. The creature turned slowly. No eyes, no mouth, but she felt it see her. And then, it whispered. Directly into her mind. "You opened the door." She stumbled back. Clara ran to her, grabbing her arm. Her stitched mouth moved silently. Eliza could almost hear it now, not in words, but impressions. "Don't listen. Don't speak. Don't make a sound." The figure stepped closer. Clara pulled Eliza hard, toward the wall. Toward a side door that hadn't been there before. Eliza didn't hesitate. She ran. They burst into a side passage, low ceiling, dripping stone. They ran through the dark, footsteps muffled by wet moss. Behind them, no sound. But the pressure followed. The sense of something massive and ancient gliding behind the walls. Clara stopped at an iron gate. It was rusted shut. Eliza helped her pry it open. Inside was a crawlspace, lined with hundreds of old dolls. All missing mouths. They crawled through to another mirror. This one was cloudy. As they approached, Eliza recognized the room on the other side. Her parents' bedroom. She turned to Clara. "Can you come with me?" Clara shook her head. Then, slowly, she opened her mouth. The threads tore. And she whispered one word. "Soon." Then pushed Eliza through. She landed on her parents' bedroom floor. Everything was quiet. It was still night. She rushed down the hall to her own room and slammed the trapdoor shut. She sat with her back against the wall until the sun rose. That morning, she checked her spiral notebook. A new page had been written in her own handwriting. But she hadn't written it. "The one who waits is watching. The trapdoor is not a door, it's a mouth. It eats what it's given. But sometimes, it wants more. Clara fed it. Now it wants me." At the bottom of the page, one word in large black ink. Soon. Chapter 6, The Threads Between. Eliza stayed out of her room the next night. She lay on the couch downstairs, claiming she wanted to watch TV until she fell asleep. Her parents were too tired to argue. But the truth was simpler, she couldn't be near the trapdoor. Not tonight. Not after what Clara had shown her. Even with the cushions pulled over her ears, she heard it. The voice again. Not from below. Not from the mirror. Inside her head. "You opened the way. Now stay open." The next morning, she searched the attic. Not for ghosts, but for records. Clues. She had to know what the house had been before her family moved in. At the back, beneath a collapsed box of tax papers and moldy baby clothes, she found a bundle wrapped in twine, old papers, yellowed and brittle. Inside were property deeds. Hemlock House was older than she thought, built in 1891, abandoned in 1912. Renovated 3 times. Never sold more than once before the family moved out or disappeared. Then she found it. A newspaper clipping. Torn, barely readable. Local girl vanishes from Beckett House. December 3, 1911. 6-year-old Clara Donnelly was last seen playing in her upstairs bedroom. Her parents reported hearing strange noises from the floor the night before her disappearance. Investigators found a small shoe and thread in her bed. The case remains unsolved. The photo attached was grainy but unmistakable. It was Clara. Same face. Same dress. Same stitched lips. Eliza dropped the paper and backed away. That evening, she asked her mom if anyone else had lived in the house recently. "Before us? Just the couple who flipped it, contractors, I think. Didn't stay long. Anyone, before that?" Her mom frowned. The records were weird. Lots of gaps. But no, nothing recent. Why? No reason, she lied. She didn't make it through the night. At 2:23 a.m., she was pulled from a dream, of thread sliding through her skin, by a creak. Not from below. From her closet. The blanket over the mirror had fallen again. In the reflection, her room looked wrong. The angles too sharp. The shadows too deep. And in the reflection, beneath her bed, something was moving. She looked down. Nothing. Back at the mirror. A hand slid out from under her bed. Thin, gray, fingers dragging along the wood. Eliza leapt from her mattress and ran to the trapdoor. Better the devil she knew. She climbed down, faster this time. Her hands were shaking, her feet nearly slipping on the worn rungs. The chamber below was darker than usual. The bulb overhead buzzed dimly. But someone was waiting. Clara. She stood in the corner, hands clasped in front of her, eyes wide with panic. She shook her head. Eliza stepped closer. I had to come, she whispered. Clara reached out, grabbing her wrist, and pointed to the mirror. Eliza turned. This time, it didn't show a hallway. It showed her bedroom. Her bed. And a shape beneath the blanket. Slowly rising. Then falling. Breathing. She gasped. Clara pointed to her again. Then drew her finger across her lips, like a zipper. Silence. Eliza nodded. The mirror rippled. They stepped through together. This new corridor was different, longer, deeper, colder. On either side were doors. Dozens of them. Each one bore a name. May. Jonah. Delilah. Clara. Eliza. She stopped at her name. The door was still closed. The others were open. Behind them, she could see beds. Dolls. Rope. Thread. Each a room someone had made, and then left behind. A thread hung from her doorknob, black, slick, moving faintly as if breathing. She reached for it. Clara slapped her hand away. Don't open it, Clara whispered. Eliza didn't ask how she could speak now. She just listened. Clara pressed her palm against Eliza's chest. You're still awake, she said. But the thread is in you. That's how he feeds. He? Clara didn't answer. Instead, she turned and began walking deeper down the corridor. The walls pulsed. Eliza followed. They reached a final door. Taller than the rest. Covered in carvings. Clara touched it once. It swung open on its own. Inside was a room of thread. Strings hung from the ceiling like vines, red, black, silver, white, tied in knots, tied in mouths, tied in eyes. Suspended in the webs were shapes. Children. Some motionless. Some twitching. Their mouths sewn. Their hands curled. And at the far wall, hunched in shadow, sat the creature. It had no face. Only a hole in its chest, sewn around the edges with the same black thread. It turned toward them. And Eliza finally heard its voice, not in a whisper this time. But in a roar. You were mine. She screamed. Clara grabbed her hand and ran. Back down the hall. Through the threads. Past the doors. The mirror reappeared. Eliza dove through it. Clara behind her. The stone chamber welcomed them again. Eliza gasped for breath. Clara stood, eyes wet. He's awake now, Clara said. He'll follow. He always does. What do I do? Clara shook her head. I didn't stop him. You still can. Then she backed away, into the mirror, and vanished. The glass went dark. Eliza climbed the ladder slowly. Back into her room. The thread on her doorknob was gone. But a new one had appeared around her wrist. Thin. Black. Tight. Chapter 7, Sleeper's Thread. Eliza didn't take off the thread. She tried. The moment her fingers tugged at it, pain flared up her arm like fire. It wasn't burning her skin, it was burning into her. Like it belonged there. She stood at her bathroom mirror and stared at the black loop encircling her wrist. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The worst part? She couldn't feel where it ended. There was no knot. No loose end. Just thread, disappearing into her skin. At school, she kept her sleeve pulled down. Her head low. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't eat. The whispers followed her. Not out loud, but through her reflection. Every time she passed a window or walked by a locker mirror, her eyes caught movement that wasn't hers. She finally stopped looking. But the voice still reached her. "You belong to me now, Eliza." At home, the spiral notebook had more pages. She hadn't written them. Each page was a message. He is hungry. The sleepers feed him. Once sown, you dream forever. And then. Clara stayed too long. You still have time. But the thread grows. She slammed the book shut and shoved it under her mattress. That night, the mirror in the closet cracked down the center. No one had touched it. Behind the crack, she saw her reflection again. Except it wasn't her anymore. It had no face. Only a stitched mouth. And eyes that blinked backward. The reflection raised one hand. So did Eliza. But she wasn't controlling it anymore. She woke in the trapdoor chamber. No memory of climbing down. The bulb flickered violently overhead. The mirror glowed. And this time, it was open without her touching it. She was expected. On the other side, the corridor was gone. There was only a plain room. Round, endless feeling. The walls made of smooth gray stone. The center of the floor was a spiral of red thread, coiling inward like a vortex. At the spiral's heart stood a spindle. Old. Tall. Turning slowly on its own. Every now and then, it jerked, spinning faster. As it turned, black thread unraveled from nothing, spooling itself around the wheel. Eliza stepped toward it. Her feet felt heavier with each step, like her legs were full of water. The spindle groaned. The thread wrapped tighter around her wrist. From the far wall came a voice, not whispering now, but singing. A soft lullaby. She recognized the words. Her mother's voice. From when she was little. Go to sleep, and close your eyes. Darkness comes, but don't you cry. She froze. The lullaby came from a mouth in the wall. Sewn mostly shut, but vibrating with sound. Around it were hundreds more mouths. All closed with thread. All singing. The room began to pulse, like a heartbeat in stone. She clutched her ears, but the thread around her wrist pulsed back. Feed him, a voice said in her head. Feed the thread. She saw herself in the mirror again. Only this time, the other Eliza was floating, weightless, her body cocooned in web. And around her spun the creature. The one who waits. Sewing. Threading. Binding her limbs together. Not to kill her. To preserve her. A perfect sleeper. Clara appeared again. This time, in front of the spindle. Her dress was soaked in red. Her hands trembling. Eliza, she said, her voice thin. It's too late for me. No. Clara shook her head. I pulled my thread too late. It became part of me. I forgot who I was. Eliza moved closer. Clara took her hand. You still have a choice. But you have to stop the spindle. How? Break the thread. All of it. It's in me. I know. They stared at each other. Clara's eyes shimmered with tears. If you stay, you won't feel pain anymore. Or sadness. You'll sleep forever. Behind her, the spindle groaned again. Clara let go. It's starting. Eliza turned to the spindle. She ran. The thread coiled beneath her, reaching up her legs, tightening around her chest. It whispered promises. No more fear. No more death. No more waking. She screamed. And threw her body into the spindle. It cracked. The thread screamed. A noise like tearing cloth echoed through the chamber. The walls shook. The mouths opened, screaming. The lullaby turned to static. The thread snapped at her wrist, coiling in the air like a serpent. She grabbed it. And tore. Pain ripped through her mind. But the thread came loose. The black loop unraveled. And then. Darkness. She woke in her bed. Morning light through the window. Her arm was bruised, raw, but the thread was gone. She sat up slowly. The rug was back in place. The trapdoor closed. She ran to the closet mirror. It was empty. Just her. Her notebook had only blank pages. Her wrist still tingled where the thread had been. In her mind, she still heard Clara's voice. But the spindle was broken. For now. Chapter 8, The Stitching Silence. For 3 days, Eliza didn't dream. Not of Clara. Not of the spindle. Not of the one who waits. The silence was beautiful at first. She slept for hours. Deep, clean sleep. No threads, no whispers, no waking up on the floor with blood under her nails. But by the 4th night, the silence changed. It didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt like holding your breath. Her parents noticed she was getting better. She ate more, smiled more, went to school without falling asleep in class. She even laughed at lunch. But something gnawed at her under the surface. An itch just beneath the skin. Not on her wrist, but deeper, at the base of her spine. The kind of feeling you can't scratch. That night, she stood in front of her closet mirror. Still just her. Still alone. Still quiet. But she felt it. A pressure. Like something was watching from the other side of the glass. Too patient to move. Too confident to rush. Waiting. At school the next day, she stayed behind after class to talk to her English teacher, Mr. Howland. He had a small library in his room, mostly old horror books and dusty myths. "Do you believe in threads?" she asked. He looked at her over his glasses. Threads? Between places. Between people. Something that binds. He smiled slightly. Ah. Like fate. Or spirit threads. Her pulse picked up. Spirit threads? He nodded. Old folklore. Certain spirits are said to attach themselves to people by thread, unseen, unbroken. The longer it stays, the more of yourself you lose. Until you're a vessel. A vessel, she repeated. For what, no one really agrees on. Sometimes just for sleep. Sometimes, for something worse. That night, the silence returned. She lay in bed for hours. Nothing moved. Nothing whispered. But just before sleep took her, just before the edges of her vision folded into blackness, she heard it. A single sound. The faint, slow pull of thread through skin. SHHT. She bolted upright. Silence again. Her closet mirror was covered. The trapdoor was closed. But her pillow was damp. She touched it. Thread. Black. Coiled neatly beneath her head. She didn't sleep again. Instead, she opened the trapdoor. Not to enter. Not yet. She just sat beside it, flashlight in hand, waiting. Listening. Somewhere below, she felt it move. But it didn't whisper. Didn't drag. Just waited. Eliza leaned closer. Then it came, not a voice, but a memory. A dream she hadn't had yet. The spindle, mended. Clara, gone. Her own body hanging by threads from the ceiling of that endless room, eyes closed. Mouth sewn tight. And beneath her, the one who waits. Rocking back and forth. Sewing. Always sewing. She stood up and walked to her mirror. Uncovered it. Her reflection was still intact. Still hers. But on the glass, in frost, a word appeared. Sewn. She backed away slowly. When she turned, the closet door creaked open on its own. Inside hung dozens of old dresses. Too small for her. Children's clothes. At the back of the closet, a slit in the wall. Thin. Like a mouth. She stepped closer. The walls began to whisper again. She returned to the trapdoor, this time with a knife. The thread had come back. This time, around her ankle. She sliced it off before it could tighten. Blood trickled, but she didn't care. Eliza, the voice came again. Soft. Gentle. You can't unmake what you are. I'm not yours, she whispered. You opened the silence. Now live inside it. She slammed the trapdoor shut and nailed it closed. All four corners. Then moved her dresser over it. Then her bed. Then she sat in the middle of the room, shaking. The next morning, her mother found her curled in a blanket, eyes wide open. Eliza, sweetie? Don't say my name, she whispered. In the hallway outside her room, 3 long black threads stretched from the trapdoor to her doorframe. They were tied in bows. Waiting to be pulled.